That $680,000 was for your cancer treatment. My sister-in-law Ashley smirked, twirling the keys to her new mansion. But I guess you won't be needing it anymore, right? Her laughter echoed through the hospital corridor, sharp and cruel like broken glass. I sat there in my hospital gown, the chemotherapy drugs still burning through my veins, and watched her parade around in her designer clothes. The money Grandpa had set aside for my treatment gone. Just like that. Don't look so shocked, she continued, checking her reflection in the window. It's not like you were going to survive anyway. At least someone got to enjoy the money. Behind her, my brother James stood silent, avoiding my eyes. He'd always been weak, following Ashley's lead like a puppet on strings. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the cold truth wash over me. The family I trusted had stolen my last chance at life. But what Ashley didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Grandpa had left me something else. Something hidden away in his old study, locked in a safe that only I knew how to open. The truth started unraveling 3 months ago, before the diagnosis, before everything fell apart. I was helping Grandpa organize his study when he called me over, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emma," he said, his eyes sharp despite his age. "There's something you need to know." He pulled out an old leather journal, its pages yellowed with time. "Not everyone in this family is what they seem." I remember how his hands shook as he wrote down a series of numbers. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do with these." He pressed the paper into my palm, making me promise to keep it secret. I didn't understand then, but I do now. The day after Ashley's cruel hospital visit, I dragged myself to Grandpa's old house. The place was empty now. They'd all moved into their new mansions, bought with money that should have saved my life. The study was exactly as he'd left it. Dusty books lined the walls, and his old desk sat untouched in the corner. Behind it, hidden by a painting, was the safe. My hands trembled as I entered the numbers he'd given me. The lock clicked open. Inside, I found a USB drive, documents, and a letter addressed to me. "My dearest Emma," it began. "If you're reading this, then they've shown their true colors." I'd always knew Ashley would try something like this. That's why I prepared. The USB drive contained everything: bank statements, transfers, recordings of conversations. Ashley hadn't just stolen my treatment money. She'd been embezzling from the family business for years, manipulating accounts, forging signatures. But the real shock came from the documents. The mansion she was so proud of, built on stolen money. The lifestyle she flaunted, all funded by fraud. I sat there in Grandpa's old chair, reading through years of careful documentation. He'd known all along and had been gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. "Why didn't you stop them, Grandpa?" I whispered to the empty room, but I knew why. He was teaching me one final lesson about family, truth, and justice. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ashley. "Hope you're enjoying your last days in that sad little hospital room. Just sold your car to buy a new pool." I looked at the message, then at the files spread before me. My hands stopped shaking. The weakness from the chemo faded, replaced by something stronger. Determination. I spent the next week gathering everything, organizing the evidence, building a case. Every transaction, every forged document, every stolen dollar. It was all there. Then I made 3 calls, one to the family lawyer, one to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, and one to a journalist I knew from college. A storm hit on a Sunday morning. Ashley was hosting a brunch at her new mansion, showing off her ill-gotten gains to her socialite friends. I watched from across the street as the FBI cars pulled up. Her scream when they handcuffed her echoed through the neighborhood. James tried to run but didn't make it past the garden. Their perfect world crumbled in minutes. The headlines the next day were brutal. Family fortune built on fraud. Cancer patients' treatment funds stolen by sister-in-law. $1 million mansion seized in federal investigation. But the real satisfaction came from the bank's call. "Miss Thompson, we've frozen the suspicious accounts and are working to recover the funds. Your treatment money should be restored within 48 hours. Ashley tried to contact me from jail. "You don't understand," she pleaded in a message. "I did this for the family. James and I deserve that money more than you." I deleted her message without responding. The family gathered for an emergency meeting, but I didn't attend. Instead, I sat in my hospital room, starting my first round of treatment with the recovered funds. The nurse came in, smiling as she checked my drip. Your color's looking better already, she said. I nodded, thinking of the safe, the USB, and Grandpa's final gift. Not just the money, but the means to expose the truth. Sometimes, I told her, family isn't about blood. It's about who stands by you when everyone else walks away. Later that evening, as I watched the sunset from my hospital window, I opened Grandpa's letter again. There was a part I hadn't read before, hidden in the envelope's fold. Emma, my brave girl, I knew you would find this when you needed it most. Remember, true strength isn't in keeping quiet to keep peace. It's in standing up for what's right, even when it hurts. The money in the treatment fund is just the beginning. There's more, much more, that they don't know about. But you'll need to be strong for what comes next. I folded the letter, my heart racing. This wasn't just about the treatment money anymore. This was about justice, truth, and a legacy that Ashley had tried to steal. The next morning, I received another call, this time from the family's longtime accountant. Miss Thompson, there's something you need to see. Your grandfather, he left instructions. The entire family trust, it's all in your name. I heard Ashley scream from the prison visiting room when she found out. The mansion, the cars, the lifestyle she'd built on stolen money, it was all crumbling. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Grandpa's safe had revealed more than just the fraud. It showed a pattern of deception going back years. Ashley hadn't just stolen from me, she'd been stealing from everyone. Manipulating, lying, destroying lives. As I sat in my hospital room, watching the chemotherapy drip slowly into my veins, I made a decision. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about making things right. The doctor came in, smiling at my latest test results. The treatment's working, she said. Your numbers are improving. I smiled back, thinking of the safe, the USB, and the truth that was still unfolding. Ashley thought she'd won when she stole my treatment money. She thought she'd broken me. But she forgot one thing: sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear most. The nurse brought in my evening medication, along with a stack of papers. More evidence from the investigation, she said. They want you to review it. I took the papers, my hands steady now. The weakness from the chemo was still there, but something stronger was growing. Determination, purpose, justice. Tomorrow, I would start reviewing the documents. Tomorrow, I would begin untangling the web of lies Ashley had woven. Tomorrow, I would start rebuilding what she tried to destroy. But tonight, I watched the city lights twinkle through my window, thinking of Grandpa's words. True strength isn't in keeping quiet to keep peace. It's in standing up for what's right, even when it hurts. Ashley thought stealing my treatment money was the end of the story. She was wrong. It was just the beginning. The weeks following Ashley's arrest were chaos. Pure, beautiful chaos. From my hospital room, I watched their perfectly crafted world implode through news updates and frantic messages from family members. You have to stop this, James called, his voice cracking. Ashley's pregnant. She can't give birth in prison. I adjusted my IV line and replied calmly. You should have thought about that before stealing money meant to keep your sister alive. The investigation was spreading like wildfire, uncovering more than even Grandpa had documented. Ashley hadn't just stolen my treatment fund. She'd been systematically draining accounts from multiple family members, creating a complex web of fraud that spanned years. My phone buzzed again. A text from Ashley's lawyer. My client is willing to return 50% of the funds in exchange for dropping the charges. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to the FBI agent handling the case. His response was immediate. They're getting desperate. We found 3 more offshore accounts yesterday. The truth was, Ashley's perfect life had been built on everyone else's pain. She'd stolen Aunt Sarah's retirement fund, Cousin Michael's college savings, even Uncle Pete's medical insurance payments, all while playing the role of perfect daughter-in-law, successful businesswoman, and the family's golden child. But the biggest revelation came on a Tuesday morning as I was reviewing more documents from Grandpa's safe. Hidden beneath layers of bank statements was a DNA test. My hands trembled as I read it, not from chemo this time, but from shock. James wasn't Grandpa's biological grandson, which meant Ashley had been manipulating a family she had no real claim to. The hospital room door opened and my oncologist walked in smiling. Your latest results are promising, she said, hanging new scans on the light board. The treatment's working better than expected. I looked at the scans, then at the DNA tests in my hands. Does my family know about my progress? I asked. She shook her head. As requested, all your medical information is strictly confidential. Perfect. That afternoon, I received a visitor I hadn't expected. James's mother, my stepmother Sandra. She stood awkwardly by my bedside, clutching her designer purse to her chest. Emma, she began, her voice wavering, we need to talk about Ashley. I set aside my laptop where I'd been reviewing more evidence about how she stole from dying family members, or about how she manipulated her way into controlling the family fortune. Sandra flinched. She made mistakes, but... Mistakes. I interrupted, my voice cold. She stole money meant to save my life. She laughed about it, called it a better investment in her future than my survival. But she's family now, Sandra pleaded. And with the baby. I held up the DNA test. Is she? Are you sure about that? Sandra's face went white. She reached for the papers with trembling hands. Where did you get this? Grandpa kept very detailed records, I said, watching her read. He knew everything about James, about Ashley's fraud, about how you helped cover it up. She sank into the visitor's chair, the perfect family facade cracking. You don't understand. James can't know. It would destroy him. Like you tried to destroy me. Tears spilled down her carefully made-up face. What do you want? I smiled, the same cold smile Ashley had given me when she bragged about stealing my treatment money. Everything. The truth. The whole truth. Starting with your testimony about Ashley's fraud. You'd ruin your own brother. Stepbrother, I corrected, and he ruined himself when he chose his wife's greed over his sister's life. Sandra left an hour later, clutching a copy of her statement to the FBI. The truth about James's parentage remained our secret, for now, a bargaining chip for future use. That evening, as the sunset painted my hospital room in shades of gold, I received another call. The family lawyer, Mr. Harrison. The board of directors has reviewed the evidence, he said. They're voting to remove James and Ashley from all company positions. But there's more. He paused. Your grandfather's final amendment to his will, it names you as the primary heir to the entire family enterprise. I thought about Ashley in her prison cell, about James in their empty mansion, about Sandra clutching her secrets. Schedule a board meeting, I said. It's time for some changes. The next morning brought more surprises. The FBI had traced Ashley's fraud back to her previous job. More victims, more stolen money, more lives she tried to destroy. My phone buzzed with a message from prison. Ashley again. You think you've won. You don't know everything. I still have cards to play. I forwarded the message to her prosecutor. Another threat to add to her charges. The nurse came in with my morning medication. You have more visitors, she said. Should I send them away? I shook my head. No, I'm feeling strong enough today. James walked in first, followed by his lawyer. Gone was the designer suit, the arrogant stance. He looked broken. Desperate. The house is being seized, he said without preamble. All our accounts are frozen. They're saying I was complicit in Ashley's fraud. Weren't you? He ran his hands through his unkempt hair. I didn't know the extent. I swear, Emma, she said it was just borrowing, that we pay it back. After I was dead? The words hung in the air between us. His lawyer stepped forward. My client is willing to cooperate fully with the investigation in exchange for leniency. I looked at James, the brother who had stood silently by while his wife celebrated my death sentence. Tell me everything, every detail, every transaction, every conversation. He talked for 2 hours. By the end, his lawyer had filled 3 notepads with information that would bury Ashley even deeper. As they turned to leave, I called up James. He looked back, hope flickering in his eyes. Check your DNA before you sign that baby's birth certificate. The color draining from his face, another piece of his perfect life crumbling. Later that night, as I reviewed the day's developments with my legal team, a thought struck me. Ashley had been so focused on stealing money, on building her perfect life, that she never noticed the quiet power of truth. My oncologist's words from my morning checkup echoed in my mind. You're not just surviving, Emma, you're thriving. She was right. Every day Ashley spent in prison, every account they uncovered, every lie they exposed, I grew stronger. The treatment was working, yes. But this justice was its own kind of medicine. I opened my laptop and began typing, to the board of directors. It was time to rebuild what Ashley had tried to destroy. But this time, on a foundation of truth. The family empire wouldn't crumble. It would transform, and I would be the one holding the reins. Ashley thought stealing my treatment money would be her greatest triumph. Instead, it became her biggest mistake. Because she never understood that true power isn't in what you take. It's in what you choose to do when everything is taken from you. The truth about Ashley's fraud spread through our social circles like wildfire. Each day brought new revelations, new betrayals, and new faces at my hospital room door. Some begging for mercy, others demanding explanations. But the biggest bombshell dropped exactly 1 month after Ashley's arrest. It came in the form of a USB drive delivered by Grandpa's old private investigator. "Found this in a safety deposit box," he said, placing it on my hospital tray. "Your grandfather left instructions to deliver it if certain events occurred. Guess stealing from a cancer patient qualified." The video on the drive showed Ashley in Grandpa's study 3 years ago. She was arguing with him, unaware of the hidden camera. "You can't change the will," she screamed, waving papers in his face. "We had a deal." Grandpa's voice was calm, steady. "The only deal was in your mind, Ashley. I've watched you manipulate this family long enough. I'll tell everyone about James," she threatened. "About Sandra's affair. About how their precious hair isn't even a real Thompson." "Go ahead," Grandpa replied. "Truth has a way of surviving, even when people try to bury it." I watched the video 3 times, making notes of every detail. Then I sent copies to the prosecutors, the board members, and one special version to Sandra. Her response was immediate. A text. "Please, not yet. Let me tell him first." I replied with a single word. "When?" The next day, James visited again. His eyes were red, his hands shaking. "You knew," he said, collapsing into the chair beside my bed. "About me. About everything." I adjusted my IV line. "Grandpa knew. He told me to wait until the right moment." "Ashley's pregnancy." He swallowed hard. "It's not mine. DNA test confirmed it yesterday. The baby, she was having an affair with her old boss. The same one she stole money from." I let that sink in. Another of Ashley's perfect lies unraveling. "The funny thing is," he continued, staring at his hands, "I kept supporting her because I thought she was the only one who truly accepted me, even after finding out I wasn't really a Thompson." "Blood doesn't make family," I said quietly. "Actions do." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I let her steal your treatment money, my own sister. I stood there and watched her laugh about you dying. What kind of person does that make me?" "A weak one," I replied honestly. "But you can choose to be stronger now." That afternoon, James went to the FBI office. He spent 6 hours giving a full confession, detailing every aspect of Ashley's schemes he'd witnessed. His lawyer called it a complete cooperation agreement. I called it a start. The next bombshell came from Ashley herself, a letter from prison thick with pages of confession. "You won," she wrote, "but there's something you should know. This wasn't just about money. Your grandfather offered me a deal 5 years ago. Leave the family, take a settlement, disappear. I refused. I wanted it all, the name, the legacy, the power. So I stayed, and I planned, and I took everything I could. Because in my mind, you were all just stepping stones to my perfect life." I forwarded the letter to the prosecutors. More evidence of premeditation, more years to add to her sentence. That evening during my treatment, I received an unexpected visitor, Ashley's mother. "She wasn't always like this," she said, hovering by the door. "Something broke in her long ago. The need to have everything, to be perfect, to win at any cost." I looked at the woman who had raised such a monster. Did you know what she was doing? She shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. I suspected. But it was easier to pretend. Like how you pretended not to see her stealing from dying people. She left without another word. Another enabler, confronted with the truth they tried to ignore. The hospital staff had grown used to the parade of lawyers, investigators, and family members passing through my room. They even set up a small office area where I could work between treatments. "Your numbers are improving faster than expected," my doctor commented during rounds. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I smiled, thinking of Ashley in her prison cell, James in his empty mansion, and all the lies exposed to sunlight. Justice is good medicine. The family company was transforming too. With Ashley's fraud exposed and James stepping down, The board voted unanimously to implement my proposed changes: transparency, accountability, and a return to the values Grandpa had built the business on. Sandra tried one last time to salvage something from the wreckage. She came to my room with a proposal. "We could say James knew about his parentage," she suggested desperately. "That it was all consensual, planned. Keep some dignity in this." I held up my phone, showing her the video of Ashley's confrontation with Grandpa. "Dignity? Is that what you call lying to your son his entire life? Watching your daughter-in-law steal from your dying stepdaughter?" She crumpled into the chair, designer purse falling forgotten to the floor. "What do you want from me?" "The truth," I said simply. "All of it, in front of the whole family." The family meeting was scheduled for next week, once I was stronger. The truth about James's parentage, about Sandra's lies, about Ashley's years of manipulation, everything would come out. But as I sat in my hospital room that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of hope, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about cleansing, rebuilding, turning poison into medicine. Ashley had tried to kill me by stealing my treatment money. Instead, she'd given me a reason to fight harder than ever. The nurse brought in my evening medication along with a newspaper. The headline read, "Family Empire Transforms After Fraud Exposure. New Leadership Promises Transparency." Below the headline was a quote from me. "Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our worst moments. This family will rebuild stronger and more honest than before." I smiled, thinking of Grandpa's words from his video. Truth has a way of surviving even when people try to bury it. How right he was. 6 months after Ashley's arrest, I stood at the podium in the company's main conference room. Chemotherapy was finished, my hair was growing back, and the doctors had officially declared my cancer in remission. As your new CEO, I addressed the packed room. "I want to share something my grandfather once told me. A legacy built on lies will always crumble, but truth creates foundations that last generations." In the front row, James sat quietly, looking older but somehow lighter. The truth about his parentage had become public knowledge last month. Instead of destroying him, as Sandra had feared, it had freed him. Ashley watched the live stream of the meeting from prison. Her sentence: 15 years for fraud, embezzlement, and criminal conspiracy. The pregnancy she tried to use for leniency? The baby had been adopted by its real father, her former boss, who'd also been one of her victims. "The Thompson family business is entering a new era," I continued. "One of transparency, accountability, and genuine family values." Sandra wasn't present. After her public confession about James's parentage and her role in covering up Ashley's crimes, she chose to move abroad. Her last words to me were, "You're more of a Thompson than any of us ever were." The company had been transformed. The board of directors, once filled with Ashley's enablers, was now staffed with ethical professionals who shared Grandpa's original vision. Every account was audited, every transaction scrutinized, every decision made in full view of all stakeholders. That evening, I visited Grandpa's grave. Autumn leaves danced around the headstone as I placed fresh flowers. "You knew, didn't you?" I said softly. "You knew she'd try to steal everything, that she'd go too far. That's why you left me the evidence, the safe combination, the truth." A letter had been found in his personal effects, dated just before his death. "Emma has the strength to rebuild what others might destroy. When the time comes, she'll know what to do." My phone buzzed, a message from the prison. "Ashley again. I underestimated you. I thought stealing your treatment money would be the end. Instead, it was just your beginning." I didn't respond. She'd lost the power to hurt me long ago. James was waiting in the parking lot when I left the cemetery. "The board approved your proposal," he said. "The new Cancer Treatment Foundation. They're naming it after Grandpa." The foundation had been my first major initiative as CEO. Using recovered funds from Ashley's fraud, we would provide treatment support for cancer patients who couldn't afford care, turning stolen money into saved lives. "Have you visited her?" I asked him. He shook his head. "Can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever." I understood. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. The company's stock had risen 40% since the scandal broke. Investors appreciated the transparency, the ethical leadership, the return to core values. What Ashley had tried to steal through fraud, I built through truth. That night, I returned to my new office, formerly Grandpa's study. The safe was still there, behind the painting, but now it held different secrets. Plans for expansion, ideas for charitable initiatives, ways to help other families avoid what ours had endured. On my desk sat a framed photo of Grandpa and me, taken just months before his death. His eyes seemed to twinkle with knowing wisdom. He'd seen through Ashley's perfect facade, recognized the poison she'd bring, and prepared the antidote. The last laugh, I whispered to his picture, belongs to the truth. A week later, I received a final letter from Ashley's mother. She's not doing well in prison, she wrote. The other inmates found out what she did, stealing from a cancer patient. Even criminals have standards, it seems. I filed the letter away without response. Ashley's consequences were hers alone to bear. The family gathered for Thanksgiving in the company's renovated conference room. Not a traditional setting, but we were no longer a traditional family. James sat with his biological father, building a new relationship. Cousins whose money Ashley had stolen raised glasses to fresh starts. Even Uncle Pete, now receiving proper medical care through the family's new health trusts, smiled genuinely for the first time in years. I stood to make a toast, looking at these faces, some blood relatives, some not, all family in the ways that truly mattered. To truth, I said, raising my glass. To justice. To second chances and stronger foundations. They raised their glasses in return, and in that moment, I felt Grandpa's presence. He'd known that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best revelations. That sometimes losing everything helps you find what truly matters. Ashley had stolen my treatment money, thinking it would end my story. Instead, it had only turned the page to a better chapter. The truth, like life itself, finds a way to survive.